Hello there, my name is Emmy, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my end of the year wrap-up video. So I will be following along with Destiny Sidwell's end of the year book tag. I did take some questions out. I may have remixed some questions. I just didn't have an answer to every single question that she had on her wrap-up video, but I'll do my very best. So let's just jump into it. I do have my laptop here, so if you see me looking down, that's probably why. So first things first, how many books did I read this year? I read 50 books this year. That's a lot to me. This is the most books that I've ever read in my adult life, and I'm very proud of myself. I actually only had a goal of like 30 books or 27 books, something like that, and I've obviously exceeded it. Yay me. All right, now this is a prompt that I'm kind of nervous about discussing because it is the most overhyped books of 2023, or the way that I'm putting this is it had a lot of anticipation, and then by the time that I read it, it fell flat for me, or it didn't live up to its expectations, which is, I guess, precisely the definition of overhyped books. I remember when I first started, getting deep into book talk, this was a book that kept popping up, and it's We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I just remember kind of crawling through the finish line trying to get through this book. By the time that I did get to the end, I was like, that freaking came out of nowhere. And while that is a good reaction to a plot twist, I was just like, it didn't impact me the way it should have, so that's why it was kind of overhyped for me. The next one is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is another one of those TikTok books or booktube books that got a lot of hype. I just remember being so annoyed with the main character. How is this not clear to you that he likes you? It just, I don't know how do I even word this? It's kind of like a version of a miscommunication trope, which I freaking hate. I don't love miscommunication tropes, but another layer with miscommunication is not communicating and not expressing your feelings. And when something is so plainly obvious that the person that you likes you back, and you're just like in denial, and you're just like kind of self-sabotaging this whole situation, it just felt unnecessary, and that's what I felt when I was reading Ali Hazelwood's Love Hypothesis. If you love it, that's great, but I didn't. The next one is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. Anyways, okay, first of all, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I was reading this book. I had no idea that it was smut, and trust me, I have absolutely no problems with reading smut. But in the situation, it just felt like they were trauma bonding, and there were a lot of parts that were cringing me out, especially like when she would say, "My sweet little lonely boy," or like, what was it that she would say? Dude, there were just some parts that really cringed me, and it felt like because he was so sheltered in his own world, being kind of like the outcast of this whole town, I don't know, it really put me off the wrong way. It felt like, I don't know, grooming is not the right word. It just felt off to me. It just felt off. Their chemistry felt off, especially because it was like insta-lovey. Yeah, insta-lovey could work out well sometimes in some novels, but it didn't work out for me here. And then finally, this book, Credence by Penelope Douglas. There was a lot of freaking hype about this book, and I just felt so sad for Tiernan, the main character in this novel, because her parents died and then she got sent to her step family's cabin in Colorado. It feels like they took advantage of her situation and took advantage of her, essentially. And then most of all, the epilogue, it felt very unnecessary to me. Justice for Tiernan is all I can say. While the scenes were hot, steamy, spicy, all of the above, I don't want to have a conscience when I'm reading smut, and when I was reading this, I had a lot of conscience that I was just like, she should be going to therapy. Leave her alone. All right, now on to my 5-star reads of the year. There's quite a lot here, although in comparison to 50 books that I've read, there's kind of not that much if you think about it, but there's quite a list here. So the first one that I want to point out is If He Had Been With Me. I read that on Kindle. This book, I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I'm not like a huge YA reader. This is a very dialogue-y type of book where it's like back and forth type of dialogue. If you could just imagine and put yourself in a high schooler's mind, not a lot of people would probably enjoy that, but the end is heartbreaking that it made me rate it as a 5-star book. It's so heartbreaking that it's so good. Next, this isn't a surprise. It's ACOTAR. I have a few of the books here in front of me, but the whole series, 5 stars. This is, I would say, the first fantasy series that I really just ate up from beginning to end. I haven't finished a series like this. I think this is the first series that I've actually ever completed that's in the fantasy genre. I just hold a really special place in my heart for ACOTAR. It's just that good. If you haven't read it yet, I don't know what else to tell you because I feel like everyone has been talking about it at this point, but you're probably one of those people who don't want to read it because everyone's been talking about it. I get it. I totally get it, man. The next one. This is some of these books, by the way, they're probably gonna pop up again in other prompts of this video, but I'll do my best to not have repeating books, but some of them just apply so well in some of the other prompts. But the third book is Praise by Sarah Kate. So this is part of the Salacious Players Club. This is a smut, spicy, very dark romance taboo book, and if that's not for you, I totally get it, but if it is for you, I would suggest looking into the book, reading it. It is about your ex-boyfriend's hot dad and you and him having kind of like a forbidden romance together. So I will leave you with that information because from me describing that right now, it doesn't sound like it's something that should be good, right? Because I do not picture myself with any of my ex's dads, you know, no offense to them. This book, she made it work. She really made it work for me, so 5 stars. Next is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. In this channel, you will learn that I'm a sucker for second chance romance because it is something that I hold very personally, near and dear to my heart because it is very similar to mine and my fiance's story. But Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan is just done so well because it takes you through your individual journey, being a wife, being a mother, but most importantly as your own person. You're dealing with just life's ever-changing dynamics, right? So there's topics about loss, grief, divorce, therapy. It sheds light to a lot of things that I know is common. It's just the way that Kennedy Ryan does it in this book. It's so good that I recommend this book to a lot of my friends. It's something that I think about still till this day because it's just like such a top book of all time for me. Did I kind of answer another prompt? Maybe. Next is Fourth Wing. I kind of just want to glaze over this one. It's kind of up there with ACOTAR with all of the hype surrounding it, but it's so good. I found myself thinking about this book even when I wasn't reading it, and typically that's my tell on me really enjoying a book that it would lead to a 5-star rating, and you know, it truly held that type of standard for me. The elements of war, found family, being an underdog, there's a subplot of romance, and then who that romance is with, I'm just like, what more could I want? And there's dragons. That was it. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I told you that there's a lot on this list. I'm sorry, but Happy Place by Emily Henry. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. Again, another second chance romance book. I love it when books feel real, and this book really does feel like that because it takes you through meeting friends in college and then you having a job, having a career, maybe moving out of state, losing your career, losing the love of your life. How are you going to deal with that? How does everything else come into play when that happens? When you change, what's going to happen to your fondest relationships with your friends and your fiance? That's what this book covers, and I really appreciate how it was done, so that's why I rated it 5 stars. And lastly, the book Hello Stranger by Catherine Senner. I just rated this 5 stars because of how well it was executed. I remember thinking while I was reading this book, I really appreciated the banter between all of the characters involved and how flawed the character is because of just some of the things that she went through in life. I really love that factor about the main character, but at the same time, there's like a plot twist that I absolutely did not see coming, and I really appreciated how it was revealed, so that's why it's 5 stars. I recommend reading it if you like romance. That's another great book to pick up. Okay, the next one is my favorite book couple, and honestly, just refer back to my 5-star reads. All of those couples are my favorite book couple, but ones that are worth re-mentioning here again are Feyre and Reason, Cassian and Nesta. Okay, Cassian and Nesta, more specifically, I want to focus on Cassian just being someone that is so patient for a person like Nesta, because honestly, like, I was so anti Nesta, but the fact that Cassian stuck around, he was 10 toes down for Nesta, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I love them. Next is this feels so silly, but Taryn and Scale, okay? Obviously they're mated and they're dragons, and I shouldn't have, I don't know, maybe I should have them on my list because it's my list, but I just love the dynamic of those two dragons. It was worth mentioning. And then finally, Warner and Juliet from the Shattered Me series, another character that is 10 toes down for his lady. I love when the heroes, they have like an authority figure, but they're freaking devoted to their women. I love that. That's Warren, okay? Or shoot, Warner. I don't know why I keep calling him Warren. That's Warner for you. Love him. Next would be books that made me happy. I'm gonna skim and gloss over this again. Happy Place, just because happy place, they literally go to their happy place. Like, why would you not be happy about that? Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury. To me, this is like my favorite book, if not one of two of my favorite books from the whole series. It highlights Feyre and Ryzen's history and basically their courtship in this book. I freaking love it. Next is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Steele. This book makes me happy because there's closure in the book, and also the setting makes me happy. The setting is in Positano, Italy, so that just the imagery of how it was described in the book. It's cozy, it's summery, it feels like a vacation. It really does feel like an escape, especially because it has magical realism elements. It really truly does feel like an escape, so that's why it felt very light and fun and happy. And then on another note, books that made me cry, I already told you, If He Had Been With Me, the tragedy just... It feels like that. I was reading this in the car, and I just remember that there were passengers in the car while I was reading this. My fiance was driving, and I was just like, please don't cry, please don't cry. I cried. Another one that made me just like crying, shaking in bed was Beach Read by Emily Henry. If there's a deceased parent involved in the storyline, I will cry, and that's exactly the reason why I cried for this book. Another one, Aquawar, A Court of Wings and Ruin, I believe. That book made me bawl so much. Again, if you involve a parent in the book, and it just like, it contributes to someone's pain and healing, it makes me cry, man. It really does. And just... if you've read Aquawar, you know that part in the book where they reveal the name of the ships. It gets me so good. The books that surprised me. The two books that I'm going to mention to you are surprising to me because these are books that I wouldn't ever consider picking up, but ended up enjoying anyway. The first one is Red Rising by Piers Brown. It's a science fiction novel, and it's a thick one. Yeah, I didn't expect to like it. I'm intrigued by it. I want to continue the series. And then the following one is Sugar Daddies by Jade West. If you see the cover, I mean, you're seeing the cover right now, but I would not consider picking up this book, especially that this is already a taboo type of romance. There's age gap and reverse poly romance. I mean, I like smut and dark romance, and this is probably like one of the darker ones that I've read, but I enjoyed it because there's actually a good plot to it. Okay, next, books that frustrated me. I hope I'm not repeating any more books, but The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. This book frustrated the out of me because the female main character, she was just making a lot of questionable decisions. You know, I mean, I get it. If you are watching like any thriller movie, reading thriller books, there's going to be a lot of instances where you're going to be like, why are you doing that? An example, this isn't a spoiler, an example was like how she was treating her boyfriend, or just, there's just other things that really frustrated me where I was just like, dude, can you not? That was my reaction with reading majority of the book. The first one was pretty decent. The first one was pretty good. But the second book in this duology, It's not for me. Another book that I didn't want to frustrate me, but it frustrated the living heck out of me. I think this is the 4th book in the Bridgerton series, and this is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. If you're familiar with the Netflix show, this is Penelope's book. So it's Penelope and Colin, and the way that they portrayed Colin, he just seemed like such an obsessive, almost like territorial in a not cute way. Like, get your hands off of me, bro. Like, don't touch me like that. That's what I felt like. And I just kept getting so turned off by Colin, and it just didn't feel like the chemistry that they could have had didn't get properly executed in this book. But I have high hopes for the TV show, and that's really something to say because typically the books are better than the TV show. But yeah, I don't know. Up to you. You can read it or not read it, but that's how I felt about the book. And finally, the book that frustrated me the most recently is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I mean, you were probably thinking it too, right? Like, why are we talking about this petty relationship drama? There's literally a war going on. That's what I felt like. That was my whole reaction. I was just like, how does Violet not see that this is beyond and bigger than the problem that she's making this to be? And she's being real hypocritical right now, I'll tell you that. So that's what frustrated me at the end of it all. We know that this was probably intentional. There's a purpose behind all of this, but that was just my experience reading Iron Flame. All right, next would be my favorite main characters. All of the books that I gave fond reviews about so far, they're all probably my favorite main characters. But one that is worth noting is Jude from the Cruel Prince series. She is a human being living amongst the Fae. She is honestly the underdog of the lifetime. So she is constantly trying to prove herself, and honestly, she's a freaking badass. What's not to love about her? Next is another chosen one is Darrow from Red Rising. He, again, trying to prove himself, working up in the ranks. This book is basically following Darrow, trying to seek justice for his people, and we love that, and we love that for him, and we are rooting for him. At least so far I am. I'm only in the 1st book of this series. I don't know what the hell is going to happen next. So I did start reading the Throne of Glass series. I am also rooting for Selena. I think Selena is a badass. I mean, not only because she is a 16 to 18-year-old famous assassin, but she's honestly a badass. So let's give her that, but I'm still getting to know her. I don't want to put her on a pedestal yet. Same goes for Violet. I'm still getting to know her, but after Iron Flame, I'm like, dude, but I think I'm still okay with Violet. Yeah. I guess this is kind of like on the same topic of favorite main characters, but favorite book crushes, obviously Xaden Ryerson, duh. Reese, duh. Cassian, duh. But Emerson Grant from Praise, he is a hunk. And then Elliot from Love and Other Words. I mean, I can't picture him. Every time that he was described in the book, he was described to be like long and lanky, and that is absolutely not my type. To me, he sounds like Slenderman in my head, but the way that he was towards Macy and just his commitment and loyalty, the way that he was also 10 toes down for Macy, I really like that. So that's why he's on this list. Okay, are you still doing okay? I am almost done here. New favorite author discovered in 2023, obviously Sarah J. Maas. I also really enjoyed reading Catherine Center's books because she is centering the character development around the women, and then the romance is kind of like a subplot. Kennedy Ryan, I want to read more of her books. Sarah Kate, I think Sarah Kate has become like one of my favorite dark romance authors, so I definitely want to read more of her books as well. The longest book that I read this year. Let me see. Okay, so apart from A Court of Silver Flames, that's 757 pages. That's a lot. Den of Vipers, which is a book that I'm so freaking disappointed about, was 657 pages. In what world do we need to have a 657 page dark romance book? I still read the whole thing. Did anyone make me read this book? No, but I mean, that's my own fault. I'm just trying to find the blame when the blame is here. And then the shortest book I've read this year is A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in a duology series. This has only 152 pages. This is actually a science fiction novel. Oh, it's a novella. It's a science fiction novella, but I don't know what I thought this book was, but I really did enjoy it. It's following a robot and a monk and their journey together to learn more about what being a human is like. And then the human is learning from the robot about what is it like to not have any emotions? How do you view the world? So it's a really cute book. If you feel like I am rushing this video, I'm not. I just have had some coffee and there's a lot of information here. So books that I can't stop thinking about. Iron Flame, because I just read it and I am knee deep into some theories now. There's a lot of theories on TikTok, a lot of theories on Instagram, and I have been sending them to my friends. It could go either way. I mean, I don't know. You probably heard of some yourself. I want to talk to you about it, but don't spoil anything in the comments. Okay. Crown of Midnight is another book that I can't stop thinking about because I did kind of stop after this book and read Assassin's Blade. As you may or may not know, Assassin's Blade is compiled of 5 different short stories or novellas, so it kind of stopped me right at the cliffhanger of Crown of Midnight. So I'm curious to see where this story is gonna go. I do want to pick back up on it. I know only good things are gonna come from this. The highest and lowest rated books on my Goodreads, the highest one, I think it is Acomath with 4.63 stars on Goodreads. Yeah, I agree with that. I just told you that this is one of my favorite books in the entire ACOTAR series. And then the least rated book at 3.60 stars is One Italian Summer. I could see that. Not a lot of people love magical realism. To me, I still really love this book. I told you that it made me happy. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I also see why people would say that. Now for the books that I would reread, honestly, there's not a lot of books that come to my mind right now that I would reread because I told you that this is the most books that I've ever read in my adult life. Since I read a lot of them this year, it's just not something that I could really genuinely say right now. But I will say The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. This is such a great read if you are someone that is constantly self-doubting yourself, if you are typically the type of person that would self-sabotage, get in your own head, get in your way from achieving your dreams or at least taking a step towards it, you need to read this because it'll talk you out of your fear, talk you out of your self-doubt. So I know that at different phases and points in my life, I should be picking this back up just so I could refresh on some of the motivational things that she points out in this book. And now for the books that I want to read by the end of the year. I mentioned to you that I started the Throne of Glass series, so I definitely want to continue that. I think that the next book is Queen of Shadows. And then following that, I definitely want to have a palette cleanse. I could just see myself needing one. The next book I would want to read is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. I have just heard so many good things about the book that I feel like I should get to it. You know, and it seems like it would be such a quick read, so potentially as a palette cleanse after Queen of Shadows. And then after that, maybe the Mindfuck series. So I've heard a lot of hype around that too. I just haven't picked it up because of the hype around the book. But yeah, I'm curious about that. Honestly, there's a lot of books that I want to read, but I will make a separate video on books that I do want to read in 2024. But for the last 2 weeks of December, realistically, this is what I can think of right now. And then as far as my 2024 reading goals, because I did read 50 books this year, I was thinking of, maybe overachieving, doubling that, but I don't want to set myself up for failure. So maybe we'll go to reading 80 books next year. What do you think? We'll see. I don't know. Oh man, okay, I think my coffee's gone cold. Wow, if you made it this far, I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I had a lot of fun pulling this list together, so I hope that it was informative to you. I hope that this is useful. Again, my name is Emmy. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. It really, really helps me out a lot. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Bye. All right, bye.